right. I guess I should say hi, everyone. Welcome to the October 7th Flux community meeting, the late meeting. I came a few minutes late, and so I'm just starting now. What did I miss that was really awesome? Do we want to repeat any of that? Was any of that stuff worth repeating for the recording?
Sure. We've just been talking about the V1 Beta 2 release that of customized CRD and customized controller. Stefan's been telling us.
Yes, so the plan is to release today customized controller with a new API version that's backwards compatible with the previous version. It has a bunch of deprecations. Some of those are related to customize itself. So inside Flux, we allow users to override customized patches or create customized patches for their plain YAMLs if they don't use customized configs inside the repos or customized overlays. And we had 3 ways of creating patches using JSON patch, using strategic merge patch, and we also added this generic patch field. That's all of those 3 have been supported for a while now. The generic patch can embed either a strategic merge or a JSON patch. So what we are doing now, following the customized project, the upstream project, we are deprecating the strategic merge and the JSON patches in favor of the generic patches. But this doesn't mean that you have to, update all your YAMLs and do this transformation during the upgrade. You can upgrade to the new version that will be releasing this week. And later on, you can port the patches from one field to another. We also deprecated the validation field. So when we relied on kubectl to do the reconciliation of resources, we exposed this field called validation, where you can say, hey, I want to do a client-side validation or a server-side validation. And since we've replaced kubectl with Go code that uses Kubernetes server-side apply, this field no longer has any meaning. We left it there for the sake of backwards compatibility, but is no longer used by customized controller. So customized controller always do validation. And here is also a major improvement on how we are doing the validation and the reconciliation of resources. We are now able to correctly reconcile a source that contains both custom resource definitions, webhooks, and custom resources. How we do that? We during the apply, we detect that there are custom resource definitions. We validate those against the Kubernetes API. If the definitions are okay, we apply the definitions. We wait for the API to signal back that those definitions have been registered and they are active. Their webhooks are active inside Kubernetes itself, and only then we apply the rest, the custom resources. And that ensures that we can validate custom resources properly, and you no longer have to split those into 2 separate customization objects or 2 separate sources and so on. Of course, that doesn't mean you have to merge your sources. Starting with this release, you can just leave the depends on there and things will work as before. But yeah, for new setups, this can be something that's easier to think about when you arrange your manifests in your repositories. Yet another change is for the Flux CLI itself. So the Flux CLI no longer relies on kubectl and no longer requires kubectl on your local machine to be able to do all the Flux things. We use, yet again, Kubernetes server-side apply to install Flux and upgrade Flux, create all the Flux resources and so on, health checking and everything that the CLI requires. All of these improvements come with breaking changes in terms of Kubernetes compatibility. We recommend users to run Flux on Kubernetes 1.19 or newer, but we still support 1.16, 1.17, and 1.18, the latest patch releases of those versions. But I also made changes to the docs and we highlight that we don't recommend users to run end-of-life Kubernetes versions. So we generically say, hey, you should have at least 1.19, but we also added that table with all the older versions that we currently support to give people time to upgrade their clusters. And yeah, so the release is scheduled for tomorrow. That's it from me.
It sounds like we've addressed a lot of tripping hazards with this release, not only pre-existing tripping hazards, but all of the things that I tripped over while I was testing it. It sounds like they're all fixed, namely the validation field that is deprecated. I saw the very last commit that went back into that branch was putting it back, so users won't trip over that, and it'll be upgraded automatically, and you can use your old definitions. That's great.
Yeah, we can, the plan is we marked the validation field as deprecated now in V1 beta 2. And when we are going to do the V1 release, the GA release of all the APIs, then is the time to remove the field and remove all the fields that are now marked as deprecated. So we give people enough time to migrate from one version to another, and we'll do these removals like the cleanup of the API, because you cannot just leave these fields, especially unused fields, there forever. But yeah, we are going to do it in steps.
Sorry, when's that planned?
What?
The cleaning up the deprecation fields, when is that planned?
When we are going to release V1 for the APIs.
Okay, yeah.
Kubernetes did the same with their own APIs when they moved from V1 beta something to V1. That was on the timeline where they removed fields that they no longer considered useful. So we are following that and doing the same, and we'll announce it to everyone before we do any kind of removals. But this change is 100% backwards compatible. We've tested, and thanks to Santosh here, she helped me out a lot with testing the upgrades. We tested the upgrade from the current Flux version and the V1 beta 1 customization using Bootstrap. We also tested the upgrade by changing the versions inside Git, and that worked great. We also tested a customized Bootstrap where you, for example, create these patches ahead of time. For example, you want to make the Flux controllers compatible with pod security policy, or maybe you want to increase the limits and so on. Because now we use server-side apply and the whole thing that I explained later, also the Bootstrap code is way easier now to read and understand, because we no longer have to extract CIDs like we did before, write the YAMLs on disk, apply them with kubectl and so on. Now it's just, we give the whole definition to the Kubernetes API, and it just works. So I'm very happy with that, and thanks to Santosh for spending the day with me and helping me out testing all of this.
That's awesome. So there's a note in here around what's happening on the way to GA. I'm not sure who put this in here, but is that is part of what you were addressing covering that, or did other folks have information to add about? I mean, I could probably add some info, but does anyone know who added this note?
I did.
Okay, great.
But it's for anyone that has anything to report. I don't think I have anything to report. Well, at least not since last time. I think the most recent thing that happened with respect to the image star controllers is that Sunny has put in a PR for the automation ones. It might depend on the libgit 2 update. Sunny, can you comment on that?
It doesn't depend. I see the CI is working fine.
Okay, cool. So it just needs review.
Yes, also in terms of refactoring, before I've implemented the server-side applying customized controller, I had to refactor the tests like we've set out to do. And so I've added way more tests to customized controller, and I feel like I don't have to deal with Jinko and all of that. So first I refactored the tests using our new testing framework, which is pure Go. And afterwards I've implemented server-side apply. So we can say we move forward with customized controller in that direction, as in the tests are now refactored. What is still needed for customized controller are two things. One is the status refactoring, adding the case status conditions, and dealing with ACL access control list around sources. So that's the two things that are left there.
And to be clear, you rewrote the test because you were just going to find it too hard to add more tests.
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
May I ask?
And it wasn't impossible. It was just the best way forward.
Yeah, it felt easier. Yeah. And also when he reviewed everything, he told me that, well, now I can understand what's being tested here easier than before. So
okay, good.
The end goal with this test refactoring is making the review process easier and maintaining the tests easier. So I think we are way better now.
Can I ask a quick question about the ACL side of things? We could also follow up separately yes. about this, but I want to make sure I'm getting my facts straight, because I'm often one of the things that I mentioned about Flux CD in the world of CD, CO, progressive delivery tools that differentiates it from some of the others is that we follow Kubernetes. We basically support Kubernetes RBAC full stop, and we don't have separate ACLs. Is this something that we would need to add as a caveat to that statement?
So in the multi-tenancy proposal, there are some details there. We have this access control list where it's more about making shared sources obvious to owners. So you look at, let's say, a Git repository manifest, and you see there, okay, I'm sharing this with these other namespaces. But that doesn't mean necessarily that ACLs will bypass RBAC. There is a suggestion there in that discussion that we can build Kubernetes RBAC out of ACLs, like, okay, allow that particular service account read access to this particular source object, being a Git repository, Helm repository, and so on. We could do that through the CLI. So the CLI, when you say create source, whatever, if you add ACL, so that the CLI could actually write in the output the RBAC necessary to access that. Or directly in cluster by other means, like a controller could create these objects for you. I'm not sure was the best way. I'm guessing having it in the CLI so people can generate all these RBAC YAML with a simple command is the first thing we should think about. But at scale, when you have like hundreds of namespaces, hundreds of tenants, maybe a controller that creates that on the fly is better. I've did some experimentation with Kyverno, for example, and I have a policy in Kyverno that listens to a Git repository, sees the access control list and generates all the RBAC for you. So there are other tools out there that can already achieve this kind of automated provisioning. So yeah, it's a long discussion if Flux should do it on its own or not.
Definitely, either way around, it is not going to sidestep RBAC, right? So either it already has to have access via RBAC, or it will make that the case. But one or other, it doesn't ignore RBAC.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. This all makes sense. I'm trying to put these in notes without trying to reproduce all of that long discussion too. Got it. Thank you for letting me ask that.
It's a good question though, because it does look a lot like sidestepping RBAC.
So I guess my big question is there a way that we should we consider changing the language that we use around that so that it doesn't immediately, like for example, not changing, but augmenting somehow how we describe it so that folks don't immediately get that impression like, oh, well, Flux is now adopting ACLs even after they were so strict about, pairing tightly with RBAC and following that. Now they're going to just, use their own ACLs. Is there a way that we can find
No, so wait a second. ACLs and multi-tenancy and RBAC, as we talked about, the reconciliation process has no relationship whatsoever. So when we are going to implement multi-tenancy, in order for Flux to reconcile on the cluster a particular customization or hand release, we'll be using Kubernetes RBAC, we'll be using a Kubernetes user, will impersonate that user, and it will reconcile our resources under that permission. So we are not adding here to the reconciliation process any kind of things outside RBAC, right? What we are talking about access control lists are which sources can be shared at the cluster level. And it's the same with the ingress API version 2 from Kubernetes that does the same thing for sharing routes between namespaces. Is the same with, I don't know, the contour API that where you can share TLS secrets between ingress resources because you can have a shared TLS certificate and so on. So there are different aspects when it comes to reconciling. When it comes to tenants and reconciling resources under that tenant identity, that's through RBAC, and we are not inventing anything else.
Right.
I think it's a fair question though, because typically you have either access control list or role-based access control. They're two solutions addressing the same problem. So Scott's saying, is there a way we can talk about it that does not fall into that usual pattern, does not let people fall into that usual pattern of thinking of it as an alternative to RBAC, because that's what the name access control list would suggest.
Make it clear we're not doing an end around.
Right. Yeah. So we should talk about it as another layer, perhaps. Make that clear if it's not already.
Yeah.
And that RBAC is being very clear that RBAC is still respected.
Also, the next step for customize controller is to implement the principal field or the V1 beta 2 in the V1 beta 2 as optional at first. Then, as we discussed in V1, we can actually enforce it. And if you don't specify, then we are going to search for a hard-coded user inside the namespace. And if it's not there, we are going to error out. But as a first step, now that server-side apply is done, is we are going to add the principal field to the API and allow people to specify the service account in the principal field and move away from the service account name. So we give them enough time to switch from one representation to another. Now, this is not only a change in the field name, it will also be a change on how we do impersonation. So right now, what we are doing to impersonate the service account, we take the secret from that service account where the token is, and we use that token when we talk to the API. So we do a query every time before we reconcile something. We query etcd and we pull the secret from there, right? Because the token expires and you can have a new one and so on. And using the principal field, we'll no longer query etcd for secrets. We'll no longer use tokens. We'll use the impersonation API of Kubernetes itself. And what we are going to do from Go code is the same what kubectl as is doing. So we can do an apply as this user. And Kubernetes itself will verify the token and so on. We no longer will do this extra query to the API. We'll just verify that, okay, that service account exists. Let me impersonate it. And it's up to Kubernetes API to figure out if the impersonation works and so on. Also, this will require some RBAC changes for people that have locked down customized controller today. Because right now, they lock down customized controller and allows customized controller only to read service accounts and secrets. With the new, when we switch to principal, they have to change that RBAC. They can delete the secrets from there. Customized controller no longer has to read secrets, but customized controller has to have access to the impersonation API. So it's also an RBAC changes for change for those that already have this lockdown Flux installation. And I know there are lots of users doing that, even if our Bootstrap runs at cluster admin. A lot of people have used Bootstrap patches, and they drop the cluster admin role from Helm controller and customized controller, and they only use service account impersonation for everything. For them, it will be a breaking change.
Cool. Is there anything else for the round of what's happening on the way to GA that we wanted to note?
There's a ACL implementation that remains to be implemented for image automation. I think that's, we talked about it last time. Yeah. But I think that's the remaining kind of implementation thing, at least for image thingies.
Thank you.
And with respect to, I think the libgit 2 update, it is still working on that, making progress, but that's blocking him from doing some of the other things. So those have been deferred a bit. And the other things are rewriting bits of source controller as part of the package runtime update that's been kind of followed through in all the controllers. That is in the process of being followed through in all the controllers.
Source controller isn't finished with that, or I guess it's just an ongoing process.
No, so we finished refactoring the Git repository and Helm repository. Then Hide was working on the Helm chart reconciler, which is more trickier because he wants to break it down into several parts. But then out of the blue, we couldn't build source control anymore due to libgit2 OpenSSL things. So this blocks current pull requests. For example, we have a pull request that adds Google Cloud Bucket native support to source control. You no longer have to run the Google Cloud Buckets into S3 compatible mode, which has some downsides and whatever. And even if that pull request has been proved, looks great, we cannot merge it because we cannot build anything. Our CI is failing. So that's why Hide prioritized the libgit2 work. That will also help us not only restore our build system, it will also help us with all the fuzzing pull requests that we currently have. The idea is that in order to run on the fuzzing tests on the Google infrastructure, you have to statically build your binary. So this work that Hide is doing now will help towards getting us there, being able to statically build a source controller. And yeah, will also enable us to run fuzzing for all our controllers, not only the ones that are currently have no C bindings.
Can someone help me out? I'm kind of embarrassed not to know what you mean by, or did you say fuzzing?
Fuzzing.
Okay, thanks. I'll just write it down and I'll look that up in a bit.
The fuzzing conversation was in the meeting last week, so.
Okay, got it.
The technique, is it the technique you're asking about, Scott?
No, I don't want to bring that up again. I just wanted to make sure I had it right in the notes.
Got it.
Thanks. Okay, cool. Are we? Do you think it's a time to go to the next topic about KubeCon prep, or do we have more on that we want to note?
I think that's it on GA stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to make an announcement. Philip is here. Philip did a great work for adding Azure tests to Flux. So now we have end-to-end tests for all our major integration point with Azure. For example, we test that we can bootstrap, we can install Flux on Azure DevOps, we can work with Azure DevOps repositories which use libgit2. So we know for sure that our implementation doesn't only work with our mocking Git server, it actually works with the provider that we made all this effort for. We also test their image automation updates and the integration with Azure Container Registry, how we authenticate with that through our job. So we also test a bunch of things that we've put out in the docs, which is, I'm very excited about this. We also test that we can push notifications to Azure Event Hub, and that we can get Helm charts from ACR and so on. So yeah, it's a great step forward in ensuring that future Flux releases will work great with the integrations that's made for. So we have GitHub, GitLab, and Azure DevOps as the three Git SaaS providers that we actually have full end-to-end tests against, which is great. Thank you, Philip.
I would, yeah, it was fun or something like that.
I'm quite scared about that, all that Terraform, but it's great that it can be done through Git. It's great.
Yeah, it was more of a sanity thing. I started writing things with in Go SDK, and I just realized the cleanup process there is like, okay, yeah, Terraform is way easier. So I guess I have to promise now that I will never leave the Flux project. I will.
That's right. You're on the hook forever now.
Oh my
There
gosh.
are some complicated things happening there. For example, from what I could tell, we execute Terraform against Azure. Then that execution brings back into the Terraform state roles, IDs, tokens. We extract those tokens from there, and then we use those to do the end-to-end testing. So it's not just clean Terraform, apply and destroy. It's way more complicated than that.
Yeah, I tried to document some of that, and it was mostly of a necessity because we have to like. So one thing is like SOPs. The SOPs testing with Key Vault. You have to like create the key at your Key Vault, get that key, encrypt your secret, commit that to the repo, and make sure that you're installing customized controller with a service principal that has permission to the key that you've just created. So it's like this weird. Yeah.
Well,
I tried to make it simpler, but it really didn't work.
It also proves how managing secrets is challenging at any level, especially testing them. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah. All right, great. That sounds like we're on to the KubeCon prep topic. Is there anyone who wants to address this? I know Stacy's often on this call, but I think maybe she had to drop. So maybe I'll, yeah.
We're both going to be at KubeCon, Scott and I.
Yeah.
And we have a Flux booth that will be allowing demonstrations for anyone who really wants to give them. And that's what the schedule link is for. If you're interested in giving a demo at the Flux booth, talk to us. And we'll have lots of great demos. And we should probably have the link to the actual Flux booth here as well. I'm not sure if it's for publishing yet, though, so I don't know if I should put it there. There's a great page with a schedule. You can see everything Flux related that's happening at KubeCon. I'm really pleased with the way that it looks. I had no part in creating it. Credit goes to other people. Is there anything else, Scott?
Yeah, I believe like kudos to Stacy and Daniel H for that. I believe Philip and I were just talking about this in the last meeting, but Philip's going to be giving a presentation at the booth. Yay. Is anyone else on this call going to be doing that or thinking about doing that?
At the booth, I think I signed up for a slot, but it's an AMA slot, i.e. there's no preparation for me to do.
Right.
Because it's directly before or after or something, my talk, which I also have to be there for.
That's perfect.
That's the maintainer office hours, right? We have 3 maintainer office hours this KubeCon on Tuesday, Wednesday.
Oh, do we? Is that another thing? Oh, God, okay.
I think that's what, no, you're not on the maintainer office hours. There's me, Stefan, and Philip who are doing
Okay.
Maintainer office hours.
smile, sweat.
People keep referring to these various things at KubeCon, and I keep going like, wait, I'm not involved in that, am I? Because I haven't even thought about it. But yeah,
the new type of nightmare, during school, you're always having nightmares about like, oh, did I have like an exam tomorrow? And now it's like, oh, did I have a KubeCon presentation?
Yeah.
I relate to that. Yes, I'll say that we're all doing our best and we are pretty prepared. There are probably going to be some gaps just because this KubeCon is different than any other KubeCon any of us have.
Yeah. Yeah, the hybrid thing will be quite a challenge.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna have to support each other, like give each other like some real like just assume that everything's not gonna go perfect and that we're gonna back each other up however we need, And like Kingdon said, well, he and I will be there on site. So if there's anything that and Allison will be there on site. And then there were some other people from other areas of, and anyway, in terms of Flux, there'll be some other colleagues there on site, but we can help with anything that's needed on site if there's like just some weird thing going on. Maybe what we could do is, I can definitely give my phone number and things like that so we can exchange, other ways of contacting each other just in case there's something wacky going on. Maybe just let us know and we can try to hop in and fix it on the ground.
I mean, like if WhatsApp is down or something, that'll never happen.
We got that out of our system last week.
Problem solved forever.
Exactly. It'll never happen again.
Yeah, my cell is usually in my Slack status. But anybody who wants to add it to their contacts, let me know and I'll send you a contact card. I'll be there Sunday, middle of the day. So I'll be there all Monday. I didn't even realize we had a holiday. Who cares? And be setting up for GitOpsCon Tuesday morning, right? Isn't it Tuesday?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm getting my days confused.
So the GitOpsCon overlaps with our office hours, or at least with mine, which is on the same day.
Overlaps with what?
With Flux office hours.
Oh, right. Well, hey, synchronicity.
And so yeah. Okay. So speaking of that, we already have a note, don't we? Never mind. At least we know that the next public meeting is going to be canceled because of KubeCon. Do we have any other big like time conflicts besides the office hours thing that you just mentioned, Stefan?
Yeah, at the booth. So there are these Ask Me Anything sessions.
Yeah.
I think it's Michael, me. I don't know. Is also Hide doing a session, Michael?
I don't know, honestly.
Let me check.
I think Stacy put one in for me because I had put my name in that spreadsheet, in Daniel's spreadsheet.
You are on the website, so it's no turning back.
Is this another thing?
Yeah, here is the.
Oh man.
So yes, I'm on Wednesday. Wednesday, I'm doing the Tuesday. Tuesday is GitOpsCon, right? Yes. Yeah, so on Tuesday, I'm doing the Flux office hours and I'm planning to speak about securing the GitOps pipeline with Git commit verification and age encryption of secrets. I don't know if I could change my mind in the weekend, but that's my current plan. And for Thursday, it's a Flux maintainer MAA. It's me on Thursday and Michael is on Wednesday.
I thought it was also Thursday. Because I thought it was the same day. It was straight after the thing. So I'm going to say, in the Q&A for the talk, I'm going to say, join us at the Flux booth afterwards. If you want to keep talking to me. So, see how that works.
I see that. Yeah, exactly. Right. There's you and Hida doing a session, Flux Roadmap and GA, and then right afterwards is your booth AMA. Yeah. Yeah.
I have to figure out what to talk about then at the beginning of the day because I don't want to talk about the roadmap. It would be not good. Yeah, I have plenty of time to figure out.
Well, I'm also still putting together some of my slides for, or finishing some of my slides for, even for the Helm maintainers track talk. So, I think a lot of folks are rounding some things up now. We'll get it in time though.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I miss working on KubeCon slides in pubs the night before KubeCon talk. That's
right.
Sure, if you go to the closest Starbucks to the convention center, you'll find 5 or 6 people at least sitting there working on their slides.
Yeah.
That's
I remember there was a DockerCon. In fact, it might have been the first DockerCon, and the bar was right next to where they had the kind of concourse for all the things. And so basically anytime I wasn't in the talk, that's where I was.
Yep. Wow.
I don't remember much else of that.
Did I miss something? Why don't you want to talk about the roadmap?
Because Michael and Hide are talking about the roadmap
all right.
in the middle of the day. So I'm first, so I shouldn't talk about the same thing.
Right.
Or probably I could talk about I don't know, maybe server-side reply or something like that. Maybe Michael, we could chat a little bit afterwards. Yeah. So I understand what you guys are presenting. So I'm not.
Yeah, I can send you my slides. I'm not supposed to do that in general, but I can. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was more worried about maybe there's something we shouldn't be mentioning if we can avoid mentioning it, and knowing that stuff is important.
I think I might have said server-side apply was coming in the future.
Yeah.
which is true now. At the time of recording, it was true.
So this was recorded, is not live.
My one, me and Hida recorded ours, but the deadline was ages ago.
But so afterwards, the MA, it's live, right?
That's live, yeah, and I think you can even video chat yourself. It's not just text.
Yes. I guess it's the same as office hours, but over Zoom instead of that thing that CNCF uses.
Yeah, meeting play, something like that.
Yeah, is it just that's the thing that's integrated into their website? I found that whole platform confusing last time, and I still find it confusing.
Yeah, I think we're all going to find out soon. We're getting updates, you know what I mean? But it's like we're getting updates, and I think I don't think this is overly diplomatic. I think it's probably true that I would say from my point of view, I think CNCF are doing a pretty and Linux Foundation are doing a pretty good job given having to manage a lot of unknowns with especially with AV contractors and so on, and knowing how expensive that kind of thing can be and just how they have to balance an event, I wouldn't want that job. So I'm just like assuming nothing and saying, okay, well, you know, at least we know we're not going to be alone in this and that everyone's going to be figuring this out in part as they go.
Right.
Well said.
My standard line about cloud technology in general, we're all figuring it out together.
Okay, so we still have a little bit of time, right? Did I actually do this correctly? Okay, yeah. I mean, I think just probably to round out that, we should all be communicating in the Flux, just in the Flux channel, the CNCF Flux channel, about real-time things that are going on with a backup for maybe phone numbers. Is that our general plan?
Flux contributor, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's low traffic, and it's not going to, things aren't going to get lost or distract from people asking questions about using Flux.
Yeah,
I'm not in that channel yet. So I'm gonna be trapped at the Weaveworks booth most of the time. I do want to come by the Flux booth and at least visit, but I don't know that I can do anything useful other than say hello and provide you with moral support.
I'll see you there. It'll be good to meet you in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should get a beer or something in addition to that dinner. We can expense the dinner, man.
Definitely. One quick note about this is, so this is a Flux community call, right? That's, you know, a number of people that are working on Flux still do work for Weaveworks, but not everyone.
Yeah.
Are we, when we are talking about the phone numbers backup thing, I don't want to say, hey, volunteer for getting totally like spam called, but I'm thinking that perhaps if we do put our phone numbers on our CNCF Slack profile, I don't mind doing that personally. I don't want to say that everybody should feel comfortable doing that, but I'm okay with that. But is anyone not comfortable with that? Or do you think we should do it in some other way where only people that are working on Flux have access to each other's numbers somehow?
I'm not likely to answer a cold call from anyone whose number I haven't already seen, but that doesn't mean I'm not open to being contacted. I just get a lot of spam calls. So I tend to ignore most calls so leave a message, that's all.
Well, same. And I guess what I was thinking is I would actually just put your contacts in so that I'll know that it's like, oh, Stefan's calling me, or oh, Sebastian's calling me, or Sunny, or whatever. And I would pick that up. But maybe we can just offline that. So maybe this, you know, I know we're recording this now, but I was just trying to think of vendor neutrality and how we can make that accessible to folks who are not necessarily, who may be working on Flux, but working for other companies too.
I guess don't, but people don't want to make like long distance phone calls to Sweden anyway. So it's.
Hey man, Google Voice.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we'll offline that and figure out the best, safest way to do that. Okay, then sorry. So Kingdon has an agenda item.
Yeah, it's a small Flux V1 issue, and I put it at the end in case we had run out of time because it's something we can wait to discuss. It's not super urgent, but if we're out of other issues, we can talk about it for 5 minutes. Yeah,
so I guess just the last question is, does anyone have anything else that they wanted to say, like in the community call before KubeCon that we want to go over before we get, yeah. Okay, cool. Sounds like not right now. And we can always, and we have our backup for how to communicate. Certainly it's Slack, Flux contributors, and perhaps some other backups, possibly phone if needed, like for an emergency or something. Okay. It's all you, Kingdon.
So the issue that was reported was with the latest version of Flux V1, we upgraded to the latest version of the client prior to the deprecated APIs being removed. So 1.21 And what I did not anticipate was that for anyone who has not made that upgrade, that means now that you get, so if you haven't upgraded to Kubernetes 1.22, you get spammed in the logs about all of the clients that you're using for discovery that are for deprecated API versions every sync cycle. And there is a proposal to fix it. Someone took the time to find the place to add a squelch. I am not sure it's the right place. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's not the right place, but I haven't had time to test it to verify that this is actually a reasonable fix or not a reasonable fix. So I can't really make a strong judgment about it yet, but there's a one-line fix for anyone who this is affecting. So if you really need it, you can build your own version of Flux v1 out of that right now, and we'll either include that in the next release or something similar. So what I'm afraid of is that we're going to squelch all of the deprecation warnings, not just the ones that are not related to existing API resources. So to be clear, these are people who do not have configs for, like, example, v1 beta 1 ingress or things that are being deprecated. It's just that the client is trying to index these for discovery purposes. And that's where the warning's getting emitted from. So they may not have anything else to do except for upgrading to the Kubernetes release that actually removes these things. And of course, for many people, that's not an option at this time until their cloud provider makes 122 available. I just really wanted to bring it up at the meeting because it's been in the issue queue for a little while now, and I haven't had a chance to, and I forgot, I think last meeting, or we had something else pressing. And I am not planning to do anything about this until after KubeCon.
So what you are saying is that Flux garbage collection tries to discover all the things that are registered on the cluster using the discovery API. And due to that, client Go writes in standard error of the Flux container, tons of warnings around each API which is deprecated. So the more APIs marked for deprecated you have on the cluster, even if they are not related to Flux Sync in any way, Flux is not managing those, you still get tons of warnings everywhere, right? That's what's happening.
That's exactly it.
And your fix is to modify the kubeconfig of Flux, the kubeconfig that we build in code, and disable all the warnings, no matter if it's discovery, apply, delete, any kind of action that Flux is doing, right?
Is that what that does? Because I just took the code from the contributor and put it in the pull request. I have not done any other than to see that the warnings went away. I was afraid that we were squelching all the warnings, and that's what I thought we should not do.
It hides all the warnings when you query Kubernetes from Go code. Mm-hmm. But the warnings that matter most for people are the warnings at apply time, and Flux v1 shells out to kubectl. So this
might actually be the right fix.
Does not affect kubectl apply. This REST client config is for the client Go machinery. And it affects only the queries that we are doing. And we are doing queries around to discover all the custom resources, to find the objects that we have to delete, and so on. So I really don't see an issue here. It's definitely a big problem if we spam standard error every couple of seconds when the discovery API runs. That could be a problem, like a huge problem for someone that uses.
Should be every couple of seconds. I'm pretty sure the discovery client is cached.
Every
it's got a cache in front of it. but it might run, once in a while, and that's so bad. You could even be more fine-grained and probably supply the discovery client specifically, like with, the discovery API client could have its own client setup, which has the warning suppressed.
And that's what I was
distinct from any of the
thinking.
other Go clients used, because it is used in a few other places as well.
I just don't know the code well enough to have gone into that full analysis and really believe I understood what I was talking about. But I had all of those thoughts that Michael just said, and I thought that would be the most reasonable solution.
So at line 447, there is a dynamic client set creation that takes a REST client config. So instead of disabling the warning on the REST client config here, you can copy the REST client config to a dynamic client config and set the no warnings only on the dynamic client config. And because this dynamic client set is only used by the discovery API, it's not used for other things like looking at other objects in the cluster and so on. So we have three clients inside Flux One. One is the client set used to query objects. One is the dynamic client set to do the discovery stuff. And the other one, the last one, is the client that's dealing with Helm releases, the old version of Helm releases. So you can create a copy of the config for the dynamic client and disable the warning only for that. That's what you are saying, Michael, right?
Yep, exactly that. Yep.
Great.
Because as you observed, we don't care about deprecations for the discovery API specifically. We might care about it for other reasons. Yeah.
And by the way, sorry, folks, I don't know if you heard what I said earlier, but my Zoom just restarted on its own. So I was just saying that we're now a few minutes over top of the hour. Which is okay with me, but I don't know about everyone else. And I just want to mention one other thing I want to ask your help with, if that's okay. Not on this call, but after this call, there's two issues in the GitOps working group, the Open GitOps project that I put in the chat. Basically, that could just use your quick feedback. Michael, I know you've already given some feedback on some of this. I think you were asked by a few folks to weigh in, and this is something that anyone else, who's involved with Flux and like is clearly interested in GitOps, could have some say in. These two issues, I think there's an explicit call to action at the very top, and really it's like, for now, this is really just prior to a full release of the GitOps principles by the GitOps working group in the Open GitOps project that is scheduled before KubeCon. So like the simplest thing you can do is just scan it, give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if it's not obvious, if your emoji reaction is not obvious, or whatever emoji you want, but if your emoji reaction you feel is not totally obvious and you want to give a comment to, that's cool. But that's really it. And if you do have a few moments to do that, it would really go a long way. So thank you.
You put the links in the Zoom chat?
I did not. I didn't, but I will right now. I put the links in the notes. In fact, I won't do it in the Zoom chat. I'll put it in.
Yeah, in the notes.
I'll just link to the notes again so that you got it quickly. It's really, I think, the last thing on the agenda for this week. And I feel kind of obligated to say, should we call this meeting now that we're 5 minutes over? Okay, cool. You all are awesome. I can't wait to see you online and meet some of you in person, or hang out with some of you in person in LA, and hopefully the rest of you in person soon when this pandemic settles.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.